In this video, Dana Hatchett will discuss color and the development of painting using examples of his abstract work.
This is a painting I did in 1998, and it was based on kind of singular form, and I was using oil paint predominantly. And I'm showing how the oil paint kind of works as a solid and as an atmosphere on the surface, okay? These are based on...
What do you mean by atmosphere?
Kind of like in here, kind of an atmosphere of color, kind of like it's nebulously on the surface or in front of it.
Not so solid.
Not so solid, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna move along. Okay. This is another painting from the same series. Done probably a couple of years prior to that, okay? And in this case, it's oil paint, but it's the wood, the surface of the wood is helping to determine a lot. So its texture is working with the color to create a kind of sense of placement, okay? A sense of location on the page. All right. Here's the next one. Okay. This is a painting that's also done in oil paint on wood. And I would use a palette knife and I would just work very slowly on them and build them up. And in this case, the colors all sort of vie against one another. The yellow kind of comes forward or the blue recedes. It's a kind of tension that's created on the surface with the primary colors.
And why do primary colors do that?
Kind of red, blue,
yellow.
You know, yellow, blue, and red and green. They kind of find their own place. Your mind would want to kind of join them together through a kind of mixture, but in this case they kind of stand out against one another.
So did you combine the blue and yellow on purpose to create the green on the bottom?
No, the green on the bottom actually is acrylic paint, I believe.
Okay. And so when you say tension or well, you didn't say mood, but what would you say about this one? Because the intention of the artist to create.
Well, everybody sees things differently, but when I was doing this, I was very, very preoccupied, as I still am today, with color and how color functions in space. And for me, if I were to look at the blue form, the yellow form would come forward and the red would recede. If I look at the red, then the yellow and the blue would have different kinds of behavior. Okay. Now, I also have one mixture color in here, the gray, to kind of counterbalance that, okay? All right, we'll show the next one. Now this is a series I did 3 years ago, okay? It's a series based on the same kind of forms, the kind of oval forms, okay? Right. And in this case, this is oil paint directly on paper, okay? Which has a different kind of texture and a different kind of surface. It sinks into the paper. And in this case, I'm trying to create space by utilizing oil paint and different applications. This is a monoprint application where I have the oil paint on another sheet of paper. I put it down and I rub it on the back so it comes through. So it's different techniques of kind of surface and texture to create space. Okay, here's the next one. Okay. And I was doing them one every couple of days, and basically just trying to investigate surface and texture and color and trying to find different types of ways that the paint creates location in space. So location in space is sort of, for me, it's like a little bit into the surface of the painting. So it's a lot of investigations of these things.
So when you say surface, do you mean the fact that if I zoom into this, the surfaces are rough compared to smooth?
Very rough, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's intentional?
Intentional, yes. Okay.
What does that add to a painting?
The surfaces?
The roughness.
The roughness is just, I wanted a certain kind, I wanted the paint and the surface to sink to a certain level so it was very dry and it was very like powdery almost. So as opposed to kind of wet and kind of rich with smooth with paint. Here's the next one. It will show the same kind of thing, but different. This is a different approach to the same idea. Okay. In this case, I was trying to have it be kind of rough and kind of open and closed at the same time. Applying the oil paint around it was in a kind of sketchy manner, okay? So that it still creates a location in space, comes forward, and then it has a kind of vitality to it.
So you would recommend to viewers to change their focus as they look at this painting, like to look at, say, the green one, like to focus on that and see how the others change when you change your focus?
Yeah, this is something I learned from my brother talking to me about Rothko's work, that when you look at the parts of the painting, the other parts that you see in your peripheral vision become atmospheric, more atmospheric. Okay. Now this one's very different. I think it's this way. I'm sorry.
Can I ask you why in the other ones, what do you like about the oval shape? Like in this one, you have changed that shape, but what do you like about the oval shape?
I don't know. I just did a lot of works over many years with oval shapes. I wanted them to be sort of locations where the paint could have a certain kind of optical interactivity with the space around it.
And what about this one?
This one is changing a little bit, and in this case you'll see that the paint is more wet. It was put on, they're all from the tube, directly from the paints, but it was able to have a different kind of texture where you have textures and colors working in different ways, like little areas of texture and color up here where it steps down to the page, okay? Right.
So you didn't dilute the paint from the tube?
No dilution at all. There are no mediums at all in this particular series on paper. Okay. Here's another one.
And what would happen if you would dilute them?
It would, well, if I diluted them, they would sink into the page and they would maybe stain the page a little more.
Oh, so the texture comes from not diluting it sometimes.
Not diluting it. It's actually palette knife going down. And here I was pulling up an earlier image when I was applying the paint, so I was putting it down and taking it off and stuff. And here's one that's a little more kind of textured, but it's all still color. And they've been sitting for like maybe 3 years, so they've reached their max. They're not going to get drier or something. But essentially, I was thinking about how the space is very rough and kind of uncertain of itself, so that it kind of emerges like cells or something in a fluid or something, but a very dry fluid. And I really liked the way the oil paint would dry here and here and here, in contrast to the oil paint out here, to create a kind of feeling or drama. Now here's one of the later ones of that same series, where I'm starting to break the surface up in a pointillistic way, where you have little dots of color that merge together to create location. This is about having a certain feeling, but it's also how application of paint can create certain locations. This is a certain kind of spatial location that's different from this kind of spatial location, and different from this one. So surface and texture working together kind of hand in hand.
So but the surface itself isn't rough, it's the palette and the paint that creates
the palette. All of these were done with palette knives. You know, sometimes I guess I would use a brush, but really not really. I didn't want the dragging of the brush across the page.
Even the lines around the circle, the outlines?
Yeah, they're all done with palette knife, just little bits and pieces. Okay.
Interesting.
And here, okay, the area inside the bottom oval form start to break up and they become areas of maybe atmosphere or distance.
The variations.
Little variations. I might have used a little brush, or I might have had a little itty bitty palette knife. I might have had a little itty bit with little sharp points, you know?
Do you use
kind of like this maybe or something?
Knives. Okay, yeah. So show that palette knife again.
Like this here. It's got a pointy point at the. Now these are for the collages, so they're covered with glue.
They come in different sizes. So.
Different sizes. Now here's the last one, and it's just sort of a little bit different.
So the colors create moods too. So this
the colors create moods
with that purplish blue. Or
I mean, honestly, when I've been doing these over a period of time, I kind of like. And it sounds kind of like self-effacing, but I like the dopiness of the shape. It's kind of like little cartoon figures or something. Just kind of this kind of dopey blob, and the blob then has things that happen inside it. And I was intending it to have a kind of simplicity and kind of visual dopiness, kind of just like, duh, there it is, you know?
I kind of find them to look like spacecrafts. They remind me, they're very, like something unusual, you know, like, so it's not even you said self-effacing, like Adobe. To me, it's more like imaginative.
Mhm.
So if you would just compare the two next to each other, that one and the one behind it,
Mhm.
and then we'll finish this video.
Okay. Yeah, I'm
But
interested. I'm
just the
interested.
differences.
I'm interested in the iconography
With
of flying saucers, right? I mean,
Iconography, I like that word.
Okay.
But so you see the mood created by color and the texture. So basically, what would you say surface and texture provide? Focusing on surface and texture or playing around with it, what does it provide to the artist and the viewer?
Well, comparing the two, this one sits back in space. This one belongs in its blue space back here, okay? This one here rises up above the surface of the page, and it has a different kind of location. So my interest is the color, the interaction of color, the interaction of the different forms on the surface. As I was saying, self-efface, the kind of goofy kind of shapes, and the interest in the idea of, I guess, yeah, the iconography of flying saucers, like all the different movies that would show a flying saucer come down and it'd have the glowing lights, and that became a kind of visual iconography for the population. Okay, and here this is kind of more of a kind of loose, wrought, kind of childlike character against a more maybe spacey,
Sophisticated.
sophisticated, spacey kind of thing.